season, though, is who defeats Moff Gideon and gains the Darksaber for themselves, because that person is going to be the rightful ruler of Mandalore.
There's a good chance it will be Mando himself.
Or Boba. Or Bo-Katan.
Yeah, could also.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. What I didn't understand is that they all of a sudden you hear Boba say, I can see the Imperial cruiser right in front of me. They're back, the Empire, etc. But when Mando looked up with his helmet, he could also make out the cruiser, right? At least that's what the shot made you believe. There was never in my doubt in my mind. So it felt a bit odd that Boba was like so adamant about it.
Good.
Max, you had a point about that?
Yes, I actually liked that one quite a bit because it was kind of a perspective-based thing. The audience and even Mando already knew that the Empire was involved in doing some stuff at this point. Like, that was a moment where Boba suddenly realized as himself that this was back as a threat and an existence in the cosmos. I mean, he didn't stay away from them. He worked for them at times. So there's a chance that that's just another opportunity for business for him. But there's also a chance that he's got his problems with them built up at this point and just wants to take them down just as bad. He will, however, honor his word with Mando before that happens.
Archie, you had also something to say about it?
Yeah, so just to kind of clarify what he was saying is like, so the Boba pointing that out was just totally from his perspective. It wasn't like the audience wasn't aware, that Mando already wasn't aware, but that is news to him. So he would be like, oh, crap. He didn't realize that the Empire was still around. So it's only from his perspective.
Yeah, because I think Mando has been aware of this since episode 1, actually, where he got hired by that guy working for Moff Gideon. That he didn't know at the time, but you see the stormtroopers, you see everything. So to me, it was a bit odd, but okay. If what you're saying makes sense. It was purely from Boba's perspective.
Right. You know what? One other point just about the whole episode in general, and I mentioned this a few episodes ago, I think during the siege, that it was brutal. This one was especially brutal, man. Boba kicking ass was like, he was crushing dudes' helmets. I mean, you saw them laying on the ground, and they didn't have to go to an R rating to get there, but man, it was some pretty sick stuff, man. I love the little looks back at like the people he was laying waste to, the guy that got just smoked by the rock, all of that stuff. I thought that was great.
You could almost picture holding that weapon over his head and doing the Tusken woo woo thing just in celebration after he went to town on that guy's head.
Biz, you had a follow-up?
I got a question. What happened to his rifle? Why was he using that stick in the first place?
It got knocked out of his hand or something, didn't it? What happened to it? I forget during the course of the fight.
He all of a sudden started stick fighting. That's all I know.
He must have lost it. No, I guess. Yeah.
He tried to flank the troops, and he came around and kind of got in the middle of them with a long rifle. It's not actually convenient in the midst of combat. Like, it might have been easier for him to move around with a close quarters weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was indeed a long rifle. It was not really handy in close combat. No.
Okay.
You think he stole that from a Tusken Raider, or like kind of bartered for it?
I suspect he probably lived with him for a while in his survival and staying out of everybody's way. And like, he obviously, if he was coming after his armor, he had not found it yet at the point when we saw him spot Mando, or he would have gotten it from that town sheriff. It would have been way easier than getting it from Mando. Right. So it seems like he had only just found the existence of that, or only just seen it then. So he might have been living with the Tuskens up to that point, not knowing what had happened to his armor.
I don't know. Maybe he could appeal to Mando and his creed for the armor when he could show he was the rightful owner of the armor, and that would be easier than killing the marshal and taking it off his corpse. So I don't know. Maybe he was thinking like that. By the way, the stormtroopers, the first wave of stormtroopers, they were classic stormtroopers. They didn't hit anything. They were quite stupid.
Yeah.
Especially when that boulder came, they just kept running in front of it. I don't know what they were doing.
Did anybody else flash straight to Indiana Jones when that boulder came rolling down the hill?
Yeah.
And there's one point of critique with me. When they put Grogu on the Seeing Stone, it turned into a blue sky beam, the Force thing. So that has been done so many times before. They could have done it differently, in my view.
Like have him in a bubble.
I thought it was cool that it was a force field though. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, a force field's
Yeah.
fine, but why make it a blue sky beam? I mean,
I think it was implying that the Force was reaching out from him into the universe, sort of sprouting out like a tree almost, and you were just at the trunk of it as that reached out into the universe to try to find another Jedi who would be listening for it.
oh yeah, yeah, it could be.
Did he communicate with anybody, or if he did, is he aware that he reached anybody? No, are we uncertain? I don't know. What do you think actually happened there?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but I do know he's a mean bastard, mean little bastard. You don't play with. It would be funny though if like the world has gone shit crazy over so cute baby Yoda for 2 years, and then he turns out to be a Sith Lord.
Can you imagine being like the writers of this or Disney's execs when like you put this in and you're like you had this long-term plot and they were sitting there like, oh yeah we're gonna turn him into a Sith Lord later, and like all of a sudden he's like the cutest cuddliest thing and like people are buying plush toys of him and they're like, damn, like
just wait.
Yeah, what do we do?
Or you have a big laugh. I would have a big laugh if, but I mean like that. So that's.
I was actually a big fan of the Darth Jar Jar theory, so I'm also a fan of the Darth Grogu theory. I just I really liked him doing the darkness there, but I think the whole point is the Gray Jedi actually have it right, because when you create a super good Jedi, you leave a vacancy and a vacuum for the power of a Sith. Whereas if you maintain some sort of just middle of the road decency, you don't create that counterpoint in the Force. And I think that's kind of the line they're trying to get everyone to walk at this point, rather than being just devoted to the traditional superhero sense of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's why I think The Last Jedi is such a good movie, because they gave that edge to Luke. Luke was great. I will not say anything negative about Luke Skywalker in the first 3 movies, but he was a little bit of a garish too. I mean, he had less training than Rey in The Force Awakens, and he used the power of the Force faster than her. I mean, he was like with them for a day or 2, and he already shot the Death Star to pieces. So, yeah.
His no, though, to no, I am your father, his response to that seemed far superior to the no, my wife's dead from the end of the trilogy with Vader.
Absolutely. That I absolutely agree on. But that's why I love The Last Jedi so much, because they gave Luke Skywalker much more depth in that movie. I know what Rian Johnson did to Luke Skywalker is not sitting well with a large part of the fandom, but I think it was good and it was needed, and it made his death at the end so much more meaningful to me. But that's just me.
But to be fair with Luke, his father is Anakin after all, so I mean that might be why he's not doesn't need as much training, because like in real life, like children can be smarter than their parents. So in this universe, he's better at the Force than his father or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, could be. Does anyone have anything to unpack about the last episode of The Mandalorian?
I guess predictions would be the only thing I have left. We've got the empty who's going to get the Darksaber, and we've got the empty who's going to be the Jedi. And I would very much like for the Jedi to be Ezra Bridger, personally. The show is focused a lot on animals, and he always had an affinity with the animals of the Star Wars universe. They even showed the Loth Cat and everything with the episode with the Jedi. So I would love to see Ezra do it. I know there's a lot of talk about the Luke come-in option, and I don't know who thinks what about that. I would also very much like for Bo-Katan to be the one that ends up with the Darksaber, but I almost feel like it's leaning towards one of the others, either Boba or Mando, and I don't know. I really prefer it to be Bo, but between the other ones, maybe it would be good for Boba to get the thing.
It could also be Sabine if she pops up.
Sabine is still an option too. She was also searching with Ahsoka for a little while when they were trying to figure out what happened with Ezra after the hyperspace whale travel.
Mm-hmm.
I just like wondering like what it means for the show depending on who gets it. Like it almost feels like that if Bo gets it and the show's still about Mando, which of course it would be, like it almost feels like they can just kind of write the whole thing out. But if Mando gets it and suddenly he's like the head of Mandalore, that's a really interesting thing for the show and what he would do in that position. I'm not sure they could do anything with it, but I almost think from the show perspective it almost has to be Mando, but maybe not. I don't know.
It would definitely change the show like in a radical way if they made him be the leader of the Mandalorians.
Yeah, but it also depends on what's going to happen in those next 2 episodes. If they find a way to defeat Moff Gideon and save Grogu forever from the claws of the First Order Empire, whatever they're called right now, then I think Grogu's story is a bit done.
It might be.
And then, indeed, if you continue with season 3, you're going to focus on the Mandalorian, maybe as the ruler of Mandalore. That would actually make sense. But and as far as the Jedi showing up, I would love it to be Luke. Again, Sebastian Stan was cast for this season of The Mandalorian, and we haven't seen him yet. So, and yeah, I don't know if you see those created pictures from Boss Logic or anything. He definitely has the look of Luke.
He could also make a pretty good Ezra, though. Ezra grew out a beard later, so there's a chance he could make a decent Ezra if somebody put that effort in as well. The fun thing about the Mandalore thing is if he does gain it, Mandalore's always been a society in civil war. It's a constant fight for who holds the saber, so who's in charge of the entire planet. It would be a very interesting shift in the show to see that dynamic, but you're also looking at the New Republic possibly trying to convince them that they need the strength of Mandalore to gain prominence in the galaxy. So it might be that it would work out better as Bo or something because she's already got the ties with Ahsoka and everything. There's just so much going on with it. It's tough to predict right now.
Regarding the possibility of Luke, how would I am not as entrenched in Star Wars fandom as a lot of people. I mostly enjoy it, but I don't have the lore knowledge, or like I'm not offended by anything that they do. I don't have that in me. But if it's Luke, is that something people would sort of find offensive, that there's a different person suddenly playing Luke, or is that something that people would think was cool? I really don't know.
I think you would compare it to what happened to, now I have to, Alden Ehrenreich playing Han Solo in Solo Star Wars Story. A lot of people say we don't need this. However, it is rumored that Mark Hamill himself gave permission to use Luke and have him be portrayed by Sebastian Stan. So if Mark Hamill doesn't have a problem with it, why would the fans?
I don't think there is a problem with it. I just think those things are funny.
But it's basically the same what they did with Christopher Pine. He played Captain Kirk.
Right.
I mean, Spock has been recast twice already. Yes, if you want to use those characters at a certain moment, you just have to recast. I don't see a problem with that on principle. I think it's better to recast than what they did with Leia in Rogue One.
Oh, the digital version?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That was a little disappointing, to be honest. It was the thought and everything. That scene worked very well, but yeah, you're right. That look of Leia did not work very well.
So.
I didn't mind it.
No, yeah, it wasn't terrible, but you immediately knew this is not Leia.
Oh, by the way, on that note, what did people feel about Tarkin in Rogue One?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Similarly distorted.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it isn't terrible. I mean, it was close enough, but it is not him,
yeah.
and it's CGI. So and it wasn't like perfect. So yeah, then it didn't really work, and it was true for Leia. It was true for Tarkin, at least to me.
I will say the thing I loved about the Leia scene was that it was the scene you'd only ever seen in 5-inch hologram display before. So to see her recording it as the live action version was kind of just a fun little throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, got a question in relation to, because this is like what is it, like 5 years again after the fall of the Empire, are we to assume that Snoke is in charge right now, or is that still coming like later? Or
I have the feeling Moff Gideon is trying to create a Snoke, not specifically
Right, okay.
Snoke, but trying to create
Right, of
a
course, yeah,
force-using leader for to create the First Order, and
that's true.
that's the feeling I have.
I think we can also safely establish that the Dark Troopers, as they're displayed there, are cyborgs, are androids. They're not actually people. So, given that we were looking at clone vats in the previous episode, I think it has to be that Gideon was working on a Snoke project.
Yeah.
Seems likely. Just in general, the business point, though, we sort of alluded to this, I believe, in episode 1. The Empire's the whole governing system of the galaxy at this point is shattered, and there's different people trying to pick up on different pieces of it. Looks like Moff Gideon's trying to retain power in some way. I don't know if that's related to what Thrawn's trying to do, but it probably isn't. You know, they probably have different goals and different regions they're trying to like control in different ways. And then of course, the new alliance is fractured and trying to. In fact, they've shown this with the way that those X-wing fighters were talking about it, that they're trying to maintain order as best as possible, and that the governing system is just in chaos at this point, with different people trying to piece together how things now work politically. So we'll see. That's why I kind of can't wait to get to Thrawn, because I think that'll answer a lot of those questions as to what the political state of the galaxy is at this point. But I don't think anybody's fully in control at this point. I think they're trying to. I think you're in this period of trying to sort that out right now, which is, to me, pretty interesting.
Yeah, you have the feeling that the New Republic is thinking they are in control, but on outside the Outer Rim, the New Order, the First Order is trying to grab power.
But I wonder how that ship, like, I guess that there are always ways, but it's interesting that that ship, that big spaceship, like, got through, like, undetected by the New Republic. But I guess they're still setting up and working out their kinks too, so not everything in the system is perfect, obviously, but it's just interesting that, yeah, that big ship is around.
Well, at least they are aware of it now, because Mando told a marshal of the New Republic that they exist. So
that goes back to something I think Max said earlier, that Kara's looped in with the New Republic now. Yeah, I bet they show up in force at least a little bit, whatever force they've got.
Yeah.
To help out with this. I think that's where this is heading.
Yeah. I've got another point actually. Do you think Boba will give his ship to Mando?
I actually think he's going to hold on to Slave One. When that ship arrived, it was iconic Boba. Like, you saw him, that was just an instant, oh, it's Boba Fett, he's here. And yeah. I think he's got to hold on to that one. I actually think when they're doing that prison break, you're going to be watching Boba recruit his new crew, basically. He did a lot of stuff with Bosk and some other guys in the animated series. I think you're going to see people crying for help as they try to bust that one guy out, and he's just going to grab a couple of extra guys to come along. He's going to have a whole crew with him after that. I think that will be what Mando shows up to the battle with, basically, and I think the other elements are going to come in kind of independently to help also, but not as a result of Mando going to hire them or pull them into it.
No. I agree with that, but we're all, I think, in agreement that all those elements could show up or will show up in a way and team up to defeat Moff Gideon, or at least try to defeat Moff Gideon in the next 2 episodes. Yeah. Okay. I think.
Does Moff Gideon survive the season, though? I don't think he's going to. I think this will be the end of Gideon.
Yeah, that's why I have the feeling that the Grogu storyline will end, and we will see Mando go on the other storyline in season 3 and onwards.
Do you think Boba Fett is possibly going to double cross Mando at a certain point?
No.
Because he's still in it for himself. Like, if it wasn't for the situation with Grogu, like trying to strike a deal there, I mean, he wanted that armor pretty badly. I mean, if it wasn't for that, he would have just taken it. I mean, like, I know he was diplomatic, but Boba Fett is soldier of fortune, like a
Mercenary.
Exactly,
Mercenary.
yeah. So he's a bounty hunter after all. So he's not exactly like on the side of angels, so to speak.
Yeah, but he is basically like Mando, right? Like a foundling, child of the watch type Mandalorian.
Well, his father was, but Boba is not. He's just the son of one. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously you'd have maybe some of the principles passed on, but it's not so clear cut with Boba where his loyalties actually lie.
I don't think he has loyalties aside to his honor, and I think that's really what you're relying on. Is he's going to do what he has to continue to maintain a deal. He said he was going to help keep the kids safe. He's going to help keep the kids safe. After that, he might go on to do something else, but he's not going to turn and shoot him in the back right when he gives him.
No, and I think if he wanted to do that, he had the opportunity already back on Tatooine. I mean, he was standing there with his long gun. He could just shot Mando off his speeder bike. So I don't see Boba Fett double crossing him at any point. But what happens after the child is safe is up for grabs. So I guess that wraps up our review for this week. Before we go, I would like to invite you all once again to join us at Sakaar. The link will be down in the description. And nothing else left to say, but have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.